And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us. It is Friday, which means it's time for another edition of Tech Briefs. I'm Greg Nibler, joined now by Ken Yeung of Flipboard. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Greg, nice to see you. How's it going?
Doing great. Good to see you, too. Let's catch everyone up to date on tech from this week. And I think there's no other event that really took over everything quite like the Microsoft hardware event. We're in the hardware event season, as it were. We've got Google coming up. We've had Apple. We've had everybody else releasing their hardware, Amazon. But Microsoft had their turn and released some pretty interesting things. Let's start off. We're going to walk through a little bit of all of it for everybody. But starting off with the computing side, as far as the laptops, we did get some new laptops, a new Surface Laptop 3, which is nice, a nice upgrade from what we had previously. And we can get into some of the internals on that, but just kind of set it up. Then we have the Surface Pro side of things. So let's kind of maybe start off with the Surface Laptop. What did you think about that?
So, I think overall, as we talk about these different laptops, I think what's noticeable is that right now, this is all about getting your holiday wish list put together. I mean, do you want an Apple? Do you want Google? Do you want Amazon? Now, do you want Microsoft? And look, what they announced this week was basically a refresh or just a typical iteration jump for their Surface line. And I think the main difference for the Surface Laptop and the Surface Pro and the Surface 3, all of that is basically the chip. And what's noticeable about what's significant is that I believe some of them have the SQ1 processor, which is a collaboration between Qualcomm and AMD and ARM. And then there's some that are using the AMD Ryzen chip as well. So there's more power to these devices that are coming out, and I think, but largely the specs are pretty similar. Slight aesthetic polish, but overall, still these are pretty good devices.
Yeah, we saw with the Surface Laptop 3, just to give everybody a little bit of reference, the 13-inch model coming out for $999, 15 inches, $1,199. That's October 22nd, I think, for a lot of these devices. So that's like the Surface Laptop 3. The Surface Pro 7, you're right, it's an upgrade. They have the USB-C aspect into it, which I think is great. The more universal all these ports are, the better, because I lose cables all the time. So I prefer if I could just have one cable for everything. So I'm slowly marching towards that. One interesting thing that I did want to point out with the Surface Pro 7, and then we'll talk about the other one as well, was the studio mic adaptation. For anybody who does any kind of video calls, and I'm sure a lot of us do at this point, we do definitely on Digital Trends, it's the idea that they're going to have these mics angled so it'll block out all that background noise when you're having those conversations with someone and it's just loud and muffled. They actually hone that in a little bit better. So that I like. That's a nice little addition. Maybe that's just for me. That's talking about the Surface Pro 7. So that's $749. Then you get into some of the other stuff. And the Surface Pro X, and that is their beefed up version of the Surface Pro. I actually really liked this one.
I do. I think this is what Microsoft can put up to a bat against the iPad Pro.
Right.
And look, I actually have a Surface Book at home, and that's what I watched the live stream on. It's very rare that I actually use it. I mean, I have a PC at home, PC desktop at home that I do with a lot of my work, and I use a MacBook Pro here at work. So it basically sits around collecting dust. But every time I open it up, I really enjoy that experience and the device. So with the Surface Pro X, and first of all, the whole naming thing needs to be changed because honestly, everyone's is starting to sound the same, and it's awfully confusing, right?
Right.
But I think beside that, I mean, the device is pretty polished. I love the black matte of it, the impact, what the capabilities they have on there. What's interesting is that it comes with a slim pen, right? But it's not like something like like a pencil with the iPad Pro where you magnetically attach it to the outside and potentially can you knock into it and it falls off. This actually is embedded. There's a little pocket in the cover, on the inside of the cover where the keyboard is, where you can actually store it, and it actually charges this pen. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And I think what was noticeable is the demo, right? And you and I were tweeting about this.
Yes.
At the time when they had someone from Adobe, an illustrator from Adobe, demonstrated Fusion, I believe that the app was called, and she was just designing. She was doing a portrait, an illustration of somebody, and it was just kind of really fascinating to see, like, that type of work at play on the Surface Pro X.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's not like we haven't seen pens before,
Yeah.
with illustrating, but there's something about that demonstration. I think it was the Adobe Fresco that they were using, that newer one that they have.
Fresco, yes.
Yeah, and yeah, both you and I are like, yeah, we want to draw. We may be terrible artists, but nonetheless, I want to play around with that. So it was a pretty cool adaptation. And that's, again, we're walking through just everything with the Microsoft side of things. So that's the computing side. We need to get, we're going to get to the futuristic stuff here in a minute, but Microsoft also joining the wireless earbud game, as everybody seems to be doing. We had the Amazon Echo Buds, or whatever they were called. I think it's the Echo Buds, Echo Pods that came out recently. Everybody's rolling out with their version to compete with Apple. Now we have the Microsoft one with their Surface earbuds. On the Surface, no pun intended, they seem fine. The charging case for 24 hours. They've got the functionality seems to be pretty cool. They've got some form of noise cancellation, which is great. The look is something that a lot of people talked about, though. I think that was just as much as the tech, in that it's a big giant circle, so going a very different direction than Apple's. What did you think of these?
So the size is not something I care for. I mean, you look at with Samsung and Apple. I mean, yes, everyone has different form factors, so you can't mistaken which earbud you're using. But I think what's fascinating, what you just saw here, that what's noticeable is its integration with Office, right? And look, you're using this. Yeah, you can use these earbuds to listen to Spotify and to work with any voice assistant that's on your connected device, right? Whether it's Amazon, whether it's Alexa, whether it's Siri or Google Assistant or anything like that. But what you can do, what I like about this is that, look, if you happen to be, in a presentation, whatever, you can actually control what's happening on a PowerPoint or an Excel spreadsheet and kind of make it a little bit more collaborative type of thing. So it's almost like they're making the earbud the new mouse for the voice generation. So whether or not people will flock to do that versus, using a trackpad or they're, doing it on their phone or on a keypad, that remains to be seen. But I mean, this is kind of an interesting take on it, and it kind of matches with the kind of the process and the philosophy that Microsoft's trying to be doing under the Satya Nadella regime.
Yeah, and it's that, kind of like you said, it's this further integration of all their products, that each one's kind of an extension of the other. So I like it when people have, some kind of, or when companies have some experimentation, they try something new, they innovate. Whether it sticks or not, we'll see, but it's always fun to see that. And they definitely did some innovation on a couple of other sides, joining back once again the phone game with their now Surface Duo is what this is going to be called. So this is the new phone that's coming out from them. I believe they're calling it a device, but it's a phone. And it is the dual screen, but it's not the foldable screen like we saw with Samsung. This does have a hinge in the middle of it, but it's a dual screen phone. And I think that's something we've seen from LG. We've seen some other companies working on this, and I think we're going to see a lot of these kinds of things come out. But what I really like to see with this stuff is what kind of software integration that they have. And Microsoft does seem to have some good points with the software side of things, to where, one of the examples was, say you're working in one document and you want to just copy an email address over to another document, or drop in a map. That's kind of a pain when you have to go through different apps. This, you would just drag and drop it across the screen. I kind of like that idea.
So yeah, I mean, look, this is. I agree. This is a phone. Microsoft's saying, don't call it a phone. It's not. We don't think it's a phone. It's a Surface device.
It's a phone.
Yeah, it's a Surface device. It's a phone. Watch this video again, and when she gets a phone call, that means it's a phone, right? It's clearly a phone. You could clearly do the same thing on an iPad as well, it would basically be a phone. Right. I think they're getting back into the phone business. It's very, very surprising. They certainly have learned. Seems to have learned their lesson from before, when they acquired Nokia and they had their Windows mobile platform. But this time, they're not building a mobile operating system per se. They are building. This is going to be an Android-powered device. So in terms of building out the app ecosystem, they get that significant leg up because of Google. But certainly they need to be able to work with developers. I'm surprised we're not queuing up the Steve Ballmer developers side here. But
no, I've heard it too much lately.
But developers aren't going to be an important part of building out for these foldable devices. Look, I'm calling them foldable because essentially they do fold but everyone's calling them a dual screen, and that's true because it's not like the Samsung Fold. It's not like what Huawei and everybody else is coming out with, a true foldable, but dual screen and foldable can be used interchangeably.
Yeah.
But that beside the point. But getting back to it, yes. But what we haven't talked about, and what we're talking about in terms of futuristic side, is now there's going to be a new operating system per se. It's called Windows 10X.
Yes.
Now this is specifically geared for these dual screen devices that Microsoft is going to be releasing. You won't be able to gain access to Windows 10X, the Microsoft Surface Duo, or what we'll be talking about later on, the Surface Neo, until 2020.
Yeah, and we could just bring that up too. So the Neo was the other thing that came along with this, and that's the actual, more of like an actual Surface laptop device. That's the same thing. It's a bigger version of the Duo,
right?
Ostensibly. But yeah, this operating system, this Windows 10X, that is the part that I find really interesting, and that's why I really want to get some hands-on time with this, and just to see some of the different ways you can utilize this. Once you get those developers, their hands on it, that's going to be cool.
Yeah, I really like the Neo. I mean, the name sounds awful. It reminds me of the Neo Geo video game and also of the Matrix. But look, the Neo, it reminds me of a moleskin, and the fact that everything is magnetic. So if you get a chance to watch this video where they introduce the Neo, I mean, this looks like a full-on moleskin notebook. It's dual screen. And it's fundamentally how you would use a notebook while on the go. You would write on one page and flip through everything, and it looks normal, right? But then you also have a keyboard, and there's also a insert for the pen that's all magnetic, and it seems out of the way for everything. So this is kind of something I really want to try out. I think this is out of all the announcements that Microsoft made, this is the one thing that really excites me. I really want to be able to see what happens with Windows 10X, because I think that could that be used elsewhere, and are we going to be able to see that in more of our devices as in the future? And I really am excited to see what Microsoft does next.
Well, and those ones will be coming out holidays 2020. So it's going to be a little while before we actually get these devices, but this is taking a look at the future and looking at it now. And we like to catch you up to date on everything that goes on in tech. And this has been the Microsoft event. So it's their week this week. Coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll be talking about Google. We've got all kinds of other things on the horizon. But Ken, thank you once again for another edition of Tech Briefs.
My pleasure.
And I want to remind everybody who's watching live on the video, we have a podcast. So the podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. Hit the subscribe button, go find Tech Briefs, and that way you'll get the notification every week to keep you up to date. We need to get to a break. Back here.